Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. I'm Heather Burnt Santee. My guest today is Erin Ramsey. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Erin and I go way back to old days when we both kind of worked in resource and referral, right, in Indiana, and and now uh, we're in very different directions, but still connected, and I love that.
I do
Uh,
too. It's so moving when we were reconnecting here just via email, and I started thinking about how much time passes so fast.
yeah, yeah.
But what I was most happy about, I was sitting on the porch with one of my best friends talking about you the other day, and I'm
No.
just like, it just shows when you just keep putting the work in,
Mm,
like, really making a positive impact in the world. So
yeah.
I'm so happy to be with you.
Yeah. So, Erin, would you tell folks a little bit about yourself? You've been on the show a couple times before, but I always go in assuming it's somebody's first episode. So, what do you want
Yeah.
folks to know about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm Erin, and I've been in early childhood for about 35 years. I started my
Okay.
career as a family child care provider, and then I was like a 3, 4, and 5-year-old teacher and went into child care resource and referral for a
Uh-huh.
good chunk of my career and worked at state level, national level. And just this past year I just became completely self-employed. I'm a
Oh,
lavender
wow.
farmer. I know, yay. It's super fun, mostly a grandma, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I'm a lavender farmer. My family and I busted a big move, city people moved to the country, and I mostly travel around doing workshops and speeches for early childhood educators and
Mhm,
professionals and parents. Really, my mission is to help people live joyfully and abundantly.
mhm.
And I'm so glad it aligns with early childhood because if anybody needs to be joyful and abundant, it's us,
For
right?
sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly I probably think about you and your work and your impact every day. Um, if nothing else, in one of your other books, you were going to talk about a little bit about your book called Inspired Work here in a second, but you wrote one called Be Amazing: Tools for Living Inspired. And um, a lot of things stick with me from the book, but mostly your idea that we can just tell a different story. Like we're making an assumption about someone, we're already making up a story. Let's make it a positive one. And I talk about that with my students all the time when we're talking about working with families or with children. Like you already start from a point where there's a story you're making up before you have all the information. Let's make it up, you know,
Totally. Might as well
a,
make a good one.
a good one.
Yeah. And the whole idea in that book, one of that is one, we can create our own stories. So like
Uh-huh.
we've all been through a lot, we
Uh-huh.
all live under the human condition and there's just a lot of suffering. But we can heal and create a new story. That's kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying you needed to heal, but just like your whole trajectory of your
Yeah.
career and
Yeah.
my childhood,
Uh-huh.
just making the choices to get the help to heal and then to move to just
Hmm.
where you're really supposed to be,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is feeling really good.
Yeah.
And that everybody has a story, so
Yeah.
that you're compassionate with yourself and your own story, but then you can remember when you're working with other people
Yeah.
that, oh, there's a story there, there's some unmet need, or
Yeah.
there's something I don't know. So I'm just going to lead with love.
Yeah. 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 It was just, I mean, even just last night, my husband and I were driving over to a friend's house to play cribbage like we do all the time. And somebody drove faster than I think that needed to around us. And I was like, probably there's a good, and my husband said, yeah, he probably, maybe he has to poop.
Yeah, remember that's the slide I
Yeah.
use in my
So
craft
just,
book.
yeah.
I always
Which,
think somebody's in labor or something. I just figure it has something to do with the baby.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's come on, Heather. The book that I'm reading right now, or just finished reading, is called Inspired Work, which came out a few years ago, I think, showing up and shining bright. So we have a lot of things we want to get through. I'm going to go ahead and read this quote, and we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll work through our other ideas. But you write, to work with inspiration means that a good portion of your daily tasks are connected to your vision, aligned with your priorities, and your actions come from a place of joy in your heart. When we make our work a reflection of our best self, quality arises. And we were talking about this a little bit before I hit record. The reason that hit me at this point is because I work with people, I'm a teacher at a college, but most of my students are already working in early childhood. And I'm in community meetings where childcare directors are, really struggling because they can't find quote unquote good staff, and the staff they have are feeling the pressure um, of sort of feeling burnout, and uh, the children have such big needs that that's impacting um, kind of the teacher's ideas of I can't really do the things I want to do because I'm working with all these other big feelings and big needs, and it wears us all down. And so I just thought if you and I could have a conversation where you share, your tools for burnout and your ideas about our energy and our personal power that you were listing before we hit record, that maybe that might find somebody who needs to hear it.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm on the road a lot and I'm
Yeah.
meeting thousands of people. And
Yeah.
that is a really common denominator in our field right now. I think it always has kind of been like
Sure.
an undercurrent because the
We've
work
always
is
had like a
tough.
40% turnover rate.
Yeah, right. I don't even want to know what it is now.
I
Don't even
know,
tell me.
yeah. Yeah.
But we could find ways. So it's true. And there's no way that I would ever want to be dismissive about burnout. In
Yeah.
fact, as I've been talking about burnout more and more, I remember when I was burnt out. And I tell this story because I don't want people to feel shame around their burnout or how they're
Hmm.
really feeling. But I remember thinking when I was at a really burnt out stage before I wrote Be Amazing, before I decided to live my life differently and create a new story, I used to daydream that I would just like crash my car enough to like break my ankle and spend the night in the hospital.
Just
Now,
for some
you should
rest.
get help. I'm not making light of
Yeah.
anything like
Yeah.
that, but I am, if
Yeah.
you do feel that way, you should reach out. But what I'm telling people is that it's a common thing and that you're not alone. You can reach out and get help, and that how our thoughts play tricks on us because I'm going to make light of it because think
Hmm.
how ridiculous that is. One,
Yeah.
they would have sent me home, and two, I
Yeah,
would
you weren't
have $1,000
spending the night.
copay that I could afford. Why wasn't I like envisioning a 4-star hotel or something? But when you're
Yeah.
in it, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And so what I want to share is that there are real tools that we can use. When I'm thinking about burnout, it's kind of like when you light a candle and there's heat on the flame and you feel it on your hand. You don't keep your hand on the flame.
Hmm.
You are able, if you have pain feelings,
Yeah.
you can pull your hand back, right? So really what we need to do with burnout, and what I did, and now I get to live joyfully and abundantly for the most part, is those tools in between the flame in your hand, creating some space so that you can pull back out of it.
Hmm.
And really the number one thing that is just absolutely critical is our energy. And I don't want to get too woo-woo on your
You can
listeners, but
get woo woo.
yeah, I am woo-woo.
I'm
Look at
woo
my
woo.
hair and my earrings. And I
Yeah.
live on a
Yeah.
lavender farm in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
But this is what I've really been studying the last few years, and it's even propelled me further, and I think it can propel other people,
Hmm.
is that atoms are made of 99.9% energy, and they're only made of 0.01% matter. Okay, so we are made of atoms. So that means that we are 99.9% energy, and nobody's talking about it. Now, I love talking about it to early childhood people because we know kids know energy.
Yeah.
They have not forgotten,
We have a different
right?
experience of energy. Yeah.
Yeah. And what Einstein says about it is that there's no two ways about it. I mean, it's scientifically proven, but you need to get on the frequency that you want for the reality you want to match it, right? So the way that we do that, and this has exactly what to do with burnout, because it could be one tiny thing. There's a couple components of energy. One is resonance. So if you have musicians listening, which I sure you do, and I
Hmm.
am not a musician, but
Nope, me neither. Hmm.
string a guitar chord, another chord will match it, and that's called resonance. Okay. Or in real life, you're in a pretty good mood, and then Debbie Downer talks you off for 20
Hmm.
minutes in the hallway, and you leave, and you're in a bad mood, or at a minimum, a least good mood.
Hmm.
Right. Or
Hmm.
on the good side of the coin, you're feeling down and out, and your best friend comes in, they're high energy, they love you. You're going to leave feeling better. You feel known and understood. Right.
Hmm.
It even happens at like the most basic levels in nature. So, like when women work together or live together, they menstruate at the same time, that's resonance. So we're always matching because everything is 99.9% energy. So when you think about burnout, it's kind of like a cyclone in our field, and we just need one person or one situation to interrupt like that tornado of
Mm-hmm.
spinning energy. And it's tiny, tiny things you can do. The other part of energy are frequencies, and that's like channels. So we can pick the channel that we want to be on. And I know you're younger than me, but there's I always think of when I was a kid, I had a little black and white TV.
Uh-huh.
There's a little knob and it went click, and I like the click. And then you
Uh-huh.
can have a whole new set of shows in black and white,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep.
That's a channel. I picked a different channel. Or if you don't use the scanner in your radio on your car, you can move the dial just a tiny bit and you have a whole new set of songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same with your whole life. If you just do one little thing to change the channel, the frequency of your energy, then you can start moving away from that heat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how? Like
Okay, so the number one thing,
yeah, let's jump into how because I'm listening, I'm trying to listen in, through the ears of listeners who are living in this burnout right now.
yes,
And they may be thinking like, well, I can't change the whole system and it's the whole system that's really stressing me out.
yeah,
I can't change the channel because I have to stay at this job because it has better insurance than the next
yeah.
job does or something like that.
Yeah. So there's always going to be something because
Yeah,
we know that we all live under the human condition, but it
right.
is real. It is real.
Hmm.
It's really about claiming your personal power, but and I'll tell you how you do that, but the
Hmm.
underlying piece of energy is figuring out how to feel good because and it has a lot to do with self-consideration that we talked
Hmm.
about in my first book, or how do you reconnect with your spirit, and it's not just like get your Fitbit on and walk 5 miles and say
Yeah.
you did something. It is like in your spirit to feel good, and you
Hmm.
really have to connect with yourself. It's hard when you're under a lot of stress and you have a really stressful job to do that, but there's little things you can do.
Hmm.
But let me tell you about claiming your personal power, and then we can get into some really tangible tools.
Yeah.
So just think something. I'm not going to ask you, but just think anything. Got it?
Okay.
Okay. Soon as you think something, so hopefully all your listeners just get a thought.
Uh-huh.
Okay. As soon as you think something, you start to feel something. Okay. Good or bad.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Neutral, by the way, with energy. So it's either good or bad. All
Uh-huh.
right. There's a continuum, but you can't be neutral. And
Uh-huh.
teachers know that because sometimes you think, oh, I'm just going to go in and be okay and survive, but it's not. You're either negative or you're positive. So you think something, you feel something, and then when you have those recurring thoughts and feelings, then you start to believe something. Okay. When you start to believe something, then you start to act accordingly.
Hmm.
And the cycle keeps going: thought, feeling, belief, action, thought, feeling, belief, action. We are so lucky as human beings because we can use strategies to actually decide what we think.
Hmm.
Okay. Because of sometimes an emotion will come first, and
Right.
sometimes like
For
a dog
sure.
or an indoctrination belief will come first.
Yeah.
But what your real power is your thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it's not toxic positivity. It's not like, oh, just think positive and positive things will happen. Right.
Uh-huh.
You're just a reframe, like your thing with the guy, driving too fast last night. It's just a reframe. You
Uh-huh.
created a little space between your initial thought, and then you get a new thought, and you thought, oh, they're just gonna poop or whatever. But I don't want to be melodramatic, but
Yeah.
everything falls. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me give an example that I give a lot to early childhood people, and it has to do with work. But let's
Uh-huh.
say you get an email from your boss, and there's another piece of paperwork or documentation you have to do, whether it's a food program or a licensing reg or rating system or whatever. Some
Hmm.
policy comes over.
Yeah. Everybody it just immediately tensed up. Everybody listening. It's just like
I'm with them.
yeah, yeah.
I have worked in all of it.
Yes.
I'm not saying this is not true, but
Right.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
saying that we have a choice. Okay.
Yes.
So you get the email. And again, I'm going to go big because I want to really illustrate the point.
Uh-huh.
Annoying, right? Like, okay, this is too much. I already have too much to do. The kids have so many behaviors. Everybody's putting these demands on me. I can't believe I have to do another piece of documentation.
Yeah.
So then you might go down the hall and tell your friend at work, or call your husband or your partner, or you might, be talking about it in the car with your best friend on the way home, and your kids are hearing it. So you start contaminating everybody with it, right?
Mhm.
And not maliciously.
Right.
in the cycle, right? So then you're starting to get more and more, right? And then it keeps going. You can plug in anything here. So
Mhm.
then you start to believe your job is too hard and that there's too many demands, and it's not why I'm doing this job, and now I'm burnt out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Start to believe that, and then you start acting burnt out. Okay. Now you could go like this, same exact email. Okay. Same piece of paperwork, same whatever demand. You have no control over it, probably. If you do,
Mhm.
email back your boss and say, are you sure we have to do this? It doesn't seem like it works. But 99% of the time, you don't have any control.
Uh-huh.
Or somewhere someone made it up and you have to do it, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't know anything about, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, everybody's meaning well, but you
Mhm.
teachers really are on the short end of the stick here. But
Yeah.
we're in the field. We've chosen to be in the field. We have to pick the thoughts that are going to keep our energy good so that we can do better by ourselves, by our own
Mhm.
families, by the children we're serving and the families we're serving. That's
Yeah.
all there is to it. Like, you got to take care of yourself. You got to go. So you get the email. Oh, that's annoying. So you can feel your feeling, right? You can even be angry. Whatever
Yeah.
feeling comes, you let it come, right? And then you figure it out. You can reframe or you can release it. You could go for a walk. You can take a deep breath. You can say a cuss word, whatever. You can even call a friend and say, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's fine. Have your feelings. You need them. Because if you don't feel your feelings, you're going to bury them or you're going to be aggressive, and you don't want to do
Mhm.
either of those because they're low vibe, right?
Right.
But the trick, and it's part of being a grown up, is learning how to release the feeling and then choosing how you want to go forward. Okay.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Now, some things take long, grief and illness. I mean, I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the everyday things that become habit that spiral you in to an unjoyful life.
Mhm.
Okay. Because the same things are happening. We're just responding differently. So you get the email. Okay, I feel it. Okay, I'm going to go for a walk and take a breath and just, I'm not going to give this my energy because I have no control over it. I'm
Mhm.
here for the kids and family. I know that what I'm doing is like one of the most important jobs on earth. And I am not going to let one little piece of paperwork interrupt, the magnitude of my impact. Okay. After you feel it, what do you start thinking? Yeah, okay, I'm back to my purpose. I'm aligned with what's most important, like the quote you just read.
Yeah.
And then what do I start to believe? I never forget how important my impact is. I know my energy goes everywhere. I know everything I'm thinking, everything I'm feeling, everything I'm believing, everything I'm doing is impacting everybody around me all the time. So my
Mhm.
number one responsibility is to make sure that I feel good so that I can spread good energy.
Yeah. And I think as I listen to that, like so many things that we recommend for people, it's a habit, right? You're not just gonna say, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. And starting tomorrow, it's gonna be automatic and I'm gonna have reframed thoughts and it's gonna change everything immediately, right? We have to choose and we have to practice, I think is what I hear you
Yes, it's
saying.
your brain. It's a rewiring. So your listeners probably know about neuroplasticity and how we can rewire your brains and make
Yeah,
connections. And I mean, they're experts on it. And
yeah.
so we really need to think about in our own lives, what do we want to rewire? And
Uh-huh.
rewiring takes a tremendous amount of practice. The good news is it's totally free and it's
Yeah.
your tips.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes no more time. In fact, it takes less time to get into that spiral that creates the burnout. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
Yeah.
because
I
you see all the programs doing wellness, like take a day off, let's have a picnic, let's grill, and it's
yeah.
all really well meaning. Let's buy some, cute mugs, and
Mhm.
let's really try to take care of each other. And yeah, everybody should get an extra day off. I
Right,
think.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
I'll
for
take a free mug any day of the week.
but that's not wellness.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not wellness.
Yeah.
Wellness is in your mind.
Uh-huh. So, one of the things that's been helpful for me, and this goes back to be amazing too, is the use of mantras, right? So in that moment, while I'm training myself, having just one or two quick phrases that help me flip that switch in my mind, um, has really helped. It's been an important part of my practice. in this way. And so for me, one is, and you know this already, what the universe conspires in my favor is one of my favorites. This or something better has been. So when I'm disappointed about something, that this or something better, it helps me reframe. So I think that's, when I'm talking about my own experience and someone's like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to switch my thought or switch my energy. Finding that phrase that doesn't do it all, but it's a starting point for me.
Yeah, I've been talking about that. So I love that you use those. And then the other ones are all in good time.
Yeah.
So we don't have to rush everything.
Yeah.
And everything is a process. So I'm
Hmm.
in process, you're in process, the situation's in process. And then just on the note of mantras, and then I'm going to talk about what
Yeah.
people could do, is that during the pandemic, we all were really, really afraid.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm in rural Kentucky and I was sitting on my couch crying. I had colleagues, very, very close colleagues in New York, and their family members were passing away. I was worried about the kids. Do they have
Mm-hmm.
food? Everybody's freaking out. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, what's another thought that I can think here? Because this isn't helping anybody. Like, I'm
Hmm.
feeling my feelings, but, I got to release them. And, I can't be like this for the next however long, maybe
Yeah.
eternity. We didn't
We
know.
didn't know. Yeah.
I mean, really, I'm thinking, am I going to live the rest of my life like this?
Exactly.
And
Yes.
so it took me a while, but then as I started to study, I realized that the whole fear was the uncertainty of what's
Hmm.
going to happen to everybody. And then I read something by Deepak Chopra where he said that when you're in the field of uncertainty is where all the possibilities are. So that's
Oh,
below.
yeah.
But we're indoctrinated to believe if you're uncertain, you should be afraid, which we
Uh-huh.
were. I was afraid,
Yeah.
right? So then I just started telling myself, well, uncertainty is actually magical, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so uncertainty is magical. And I'm telling people this because it's my most recent story, because I trained my brain a long time ago with those mantras you were just using.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just saying it's a constant thing for everybody,
Yeah.
right?
I
And
write them on my arm.
what?
I write them on my arm in Sharpie all the time. Like I just
Love
have to have it.
Sharpies.
Yeah. Anyway, I interrupted you.
That's awesome, Heather. But what happens is, so you pick something you think will work. And I usually pick when I began, and I still do, because
Hmm.
that was not working for me.
Hmm.
But you think of what's not working for you. Okay, so it could be when I get that email, I'm reactionary and it's a waste of my energy, or my partner just, gets me in a rigmarole as soon as I open the door when I get home from work, or that one child that just, I think I'm going to have a good day and then something happens and I just spiral and I can't do it another day, whatever it is. We can pick a million scenarios. You think of something by inverting it. So, oh, here goes Johnny again, right? So a mantra there or a retraining of your brain could be, oh, what opportunity lies before me here?
Yeah.
What skill am I going to be able to learn in this situation? Right?
Yeah.
Or
I love that one.
what feeling is Johnny trying to release?
Mm.
Because when we talk about releasing feelings, this is really serious. Adults need to practice releasing their feelings, because when kids are having behaviors that we don't necessarily enjoy, they're just trying to figure out how to release their feelings.
Yeah.
Our job is not to get mad at them or to be frustrated. Our job is to figure out better ways to help them release. But if you don't know how to release your own feelings, it's almost impossible to help kids
Right.
and to use that frame. So
Yeah.
it's really a framing and then the training. So you use the frame and then the train. So I'm afraid. Okay, I'm still alive. Okay. All right. I'm going to embrace uncertainty. Okay, what do I need to think about uncertainty? Okay, uncertainty is magical and I'm going to be open to the possibilities. It has taken me 3 years solid, Heather.
Hmm.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And it feels super awkward at first. So if they
Uh-huh.
scenario that they want to rewire their brain about, it is going to feel fake. You might feel like you're lying to yourself.
Hmm.
And what I have to say is repetition,
Right.
repetition,
We know that's
repetition.
how the brain rewires, right? It's one of the ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then before you know it, like you probably feel about, with the universe conspires in your favor and this is something better or everything is a process.
Uh-huh.
You actually become it. And then
Mhm.
you don't even have to rewire anymore, because the next time something disappointing comes, you might have a little cry or have
Mhm.
a feeling, but then you can release it because you trust the universe and you know something else is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know. It feels like woo woo and realistic and tangible and achievable all at the same time for me when I think about it. And there probably was a point in my life where I would have rejected it wholly, this kind of thinking. Um, uh, but I also believe that what comes to me at the right time now, and I just need to figure out why it's coming to me.
Yeah, and
Uh,
if you do have like a woo, if a listener's thinking, "Oh, good for you, not for me, Erin,"
yeah.
are you a hippie,
The anti-woos, yes.
Yeah, and that's fine. I have a
Yeah.
lot of anti-woo people in
Yeah.
my life. That's
Yeah.
fine. You can go to the science.
Hmm.
I mean, you can read how the brain works. And if
Yeah.
you get into your executive function, which is in the prefrontal cortex of your brain, where it develops a little bit later,
Uh-huh.
right? There's working memory, there's inhibitory control, and there's cognitive flexibility. And those skills actually go into planning and analyzing and being able to reflect and to synthesize information. But when you're in a reactionary state, right, like
Yeah.
getting angry or frustrated or feeling burnt out, or all the things that are just not responsive but reactive, you're not in that part of your brain.
Yeah.
So, I wrote about it in inspired work. You know how sometimes when you are thinking really hard or you're hitting a challenge, you kind of put your hand on your forehead and you're
Uh-huh.
rubbing your forehead. It's like you're trying to access that part of your
That part
brain,
of your brain. Yeah.
and you can be your own coach. So I'm woo woo. I'm staying woo woo. And I understand rejectors of woo woo, but this is all based in science,
Yeah.
all based in science.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we've been kind of focusing on that classroom teacher, direct care provider. If you're a leader of a program, if you're a director or a coach or something like that, and you sort of think in terms of my team is burning out, or I see the impact of individual burnout on my team. Would you shift this in any way, talking to people who were like directors or leaders?
Oh, about like the way we're framing the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, you could bring in all the brain research science if that's what your group
yeah,
need.
yeah,
I can tell you this though, because I'm working on a lot of leadership stuff right
yeah,
now with coaches and states, and hopefully another book, if I'm like you, trying to get my minutes to my words.
yeah, yes,
I don't even want to say I'm writing it anymore.
yeah,
I've been saying it for too long.
yeah,
But focus right now for me, my next big project is leadership. And I
uh-huh,
just, the leaders listening, that
yeah,
I just read some Harvard Business Review stuff. And the number one thing that impacts bottom line performance in pretty much any type of organization or team is the leader's mood.
oh wow, okay,
And the only way to improve your mood is to feel good, because that's your energy. Because, we're always social referencing. We're
uh-huh,
always looking to see, how are things, like with parent-child relationship, teacher-child, boss, teacher,
yeah,
is the mood. It's all
yeah,
about the energy.
I believe that, yeah, yeah. So, I want to go back to maybe personal powers where I want to go back to, um because it's so easy, I think, especially in early childhood, especially for those frontline people, to feel like so many people are telling me what I have to do. So many different people are making decisions for what's happening every day. Um, you've talked about, but I want to go back. I want to give you, I guess, an invitation to speak more to those who feel powerless to make the case.
Yeah. My take on it is that we all have our own personal power, and there's
Uh-huh.
always going to be things, whether it's in early childhood or in our families,
Hmm.
and we have to get back to our place of power and stop deflecting out. Not to say those things aren't happening, but
Hmm.
you're never going to change those things if you're at a low energy field,
Yeah.
because everything follows energy. Okay, so if you're only focused on all the bad things in our field, you're not going to fix them.
Yeah.
You're giving it all the attention, all the energy. You're actually perpetuating it. Now, stick up when you can, advocate when you can, push back when you can. I mean, be professional for
Uh-huh.
sure,
Sure.
right? But if let's just think about an individual in our field.
Uh-huh.
You have to get to your place of personal power, and that is choosing what you think and choosing thoughts and beliefs and actions and feelings that are going to help you feel better. And then that's how real change is going to happen.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Mother Teresa, or all the philosophers and big spiritual leaders have always talked, like, you can't create love without love. Like,
Mm.
if you want to have more love, you have to be more love first,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want more abundance, you have to be more abundant first. It's the law of the universe. Like, it's right.
Yeah, yeah,
One thing I do want to say, because I don't want to kick people when they're down, and I
yeah,
don't want to act like it's not happening, because there's always going to be ebbs and flows in all of our
right.
lives, and our field is inundated right now,
Yeah.
and we are short staffed, and kids are coming out of the pandemic, and families, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still there. All
Yeah.
of it's still there. With that being said, and I hope you don't get hate mail for this, I feel long enough to know, Heather, and
Uh-huh.
you,
Yeah.
that every year there's something.
Yes, right.
Every year,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah. So let's put our focus on ourselves and what kind of energy we're going to bring forth, how we're going to move our hand away from the flame, so that when we have opportunity to make change, we're going to be doing it at a high vibe that actually will be effective
Uh-huh.
towards what we want instead of what we don't want.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
paradigm shift, is figuring out what you really want instead of what you don't want, and put all your energy on what you want.
Yeah.
Now, a tangible thing I think will help people if you're broke and you're busy and you're tired, right? Because I always use time and money for excuses for everything. And
Right.
it's true, I didn't have any time and I was broke as all get out.
Yep.
I'm with you. I get it. I totally get it. But I started to try to do some reconnection with my spirit, and that's what's led me here, and this really awesome life that I get to live now. We still
Mhm.
have problems, who
Right.
doesn't? We're all human.
Right.
But one way I think that would resonate with your listeners is to really look at their own routines and rituals.
Okay. I
We know
love a good ritual conversation.
what
I love a good ritual conversation. So
they're
yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
They're so powerful. And why I think it will be a good match for our group, our early
Hmm.
childhood people, is
Hmm.
because we know how important they are in the classroom and in the home.
Yeah.
Kids need them, but so do we.
Hmm.
So really think about, like, I've been just charging audiences with really just breaking down their day and thinking about, how can I manage my mood so that I feel better? Because when I feel better, I'm going to have a better impact.
Hmm.
Okay. So in the morning, like, this is my number one thing. I'm like Pavlov's dog. Okay. Open my eyes, no matter where I am, no matter how tired I am, no matter what I have to do, what snarky people I have to work with,
Yeah.
all the things.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Thank you for another day. Phew, I'm still here.
Hmm.
And then I go in, I have to take medicine. So then I'll drink a big glass of water. So only time of day I don't have my glasses on. So I'll look at my sparkly eyes and say, "You're going to rock it today." Then I get my cup of coffee and I sit and I just savor the first sip. I'm
Hmm.
not the Dalai Lama, just the first sip of appreciation. I'm not going to do the whole cup. And then wherever I am, if I'm home, I'll go on my porch. And then I have a new thing that I've been doing that might help people. Instead of, I do to list, and I do have checklists, and I like all that, my highlighters and my Sharpies and all that. But
Yeah.
what I have been doing is, I want to be blank, so I will. I
Hmm.
want to be blank, so I will. And
Hmm.
I repeat it every morning. And it's kind of like an inversion of a to-do list, but it's based on energy.
Uh-huh.
I'll say, I want to be more loving and energized and productive. So I will.
Hmm.
I will meditate. I'll check off my to-do list.
Hmm.
Whatever, go for a walk. So
Yeah.
I plug in every act. I try to plan my day and what I do to gauge my energy. Because when I'm high energy, I'm going to be in the place of love. Here's the framework. High energy is love, it's joy, it's expansive, it's our natural state.
Hmm.
Okay. Low vibe is fear, scarcity, small.
Hmm.
Okay. So that is one tangible thing. And even if they only have time, if they're trying to get their kids out the door and, get to work on time and all the things, just one good thought, as soon as you open your eyes, can change your whole life. That's changing the channel that I talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that low vibe stuff is sort of has to be moved through like the the emotions you were talking about before. Like if you're consciously feeling, oh, this is low vibe, you still have to kind of process it to get, or is that not what you're saying?
No, you can't. There's a continuum. So
Yeah.
there's love and fear, and then there's a continuum. We move back and forth, but you're absolutely right that your vibration is based on your emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can choose different thoughts to create different emotions. So sometimes you do need to process it, and you might need
Yeah.
to get therapy, and you might need to talk to
Oh,
your friend
sure.
about it. But a lot of times we're just in the habit of unpacking stuff that
Yeah.
isn't the matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I was sort of thinking of the smaller kind of things that make me annoyed, like, oh, I
Give me
have 7 meetings today.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that has me like really low vibe until I do something to move myself along that continuum.
Yeah, you can think a new
Yeah.
thought about it, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I have an opportunity to share some ideas or whatever.
Mhm.
Or, okay, I just got to grin and bear it. So, right? Because we do
Right? Yeah.
that, we're
Yeah.
going to feel better. So, like,
Yeah.
for example, in the afternoons, I get like stiff neck if I'm on Zoom all day, or,
Yeah.
get a little grumpy around 2 or 3 o'clock. I just go on TikTok or YouTube and watch like funny videos of like golden retrievers and pranks and people falling down. And then I start howling because, 2 o'clock's going to come. 7 meetings are going to come.
Right.
There's no changing that as part of your life, right? How are you
Hmm.
going to show up to it is the question.
Hmm.
Just like in
Yeah.
early childhood
Yeah.
and our system and all the challenges that we're facing, it's still there. The question is, what kind of personal accountability are you going to have so that you can feel better, so that you have a better influence on everybody around you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of the like choosing the word. I'm going to be blank, so I will. I want to be blank, so I will. I want to be loving, so I will. I want to laugh more, so I will. Even something like that.
Exactly. There's other ways too to create boundaries.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of times with burnout is that I don't want to overgeneralize, but at least in my life,
Yeah.
when I didn't know how to set boundaries, I would either get super angry or I would withdraw,
Hmm.
right? Because the only way I knew how to set a boundary was to be really mad or just say, poor me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, burnout has a lot to do with boundaries. Okay. One, thoughts and the stuff's happening, like I said, but it really does. So, a couple of frameworks I gave you: low, love and fear, expansive, small. Here's some other frameworks. You guys have already gotten like 5 frameworks you can work from to choose a new thought. Okay.
Uh-huh.
This is repetition. This is brain science. This is real. Okay. Besides, if we didn't even talk about energy,
Yeah.
um, the time for blank is over. And I usually will plug in a roadblock, and
Okay.
roadblocks like rushing and distracting, gossiping, negative self-talk, giving it all away, owning other people's
Uh-huh.
problems, all the things that we have no control over. We
Yeah.
only can control ourselves. Now,
That's
I've
so
been in
hard.
a
It's so
room,
hard because we're nurturer, caregiver, people who want to solve all everybody else's problem.
but it's not healthy, and that's why
Yeah.
you're worn out,
Yeah.
right? You cannot control anybody else. I have raised 4 teenagers and I have worked in a toddler room. And if anybody knows that it's your listeners, you can set conditions right,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
Environment, your energy, but you can't control anybody else. And so when you start feeling that, people who are the most out of control try to control the most.
Okay.
And then you get exhausted
Yeah.
because you're spinning your wheels and you never get what you want because you never even thought about what you wanted. So you plug it in. The time for, let's say, giving it all away, like doing everything for everybody. You go to bed at night, you can't even think straight. You're so
Hmm.
exhausted. Okay. The time for giving it all away is over. The time for tending my spirit is now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. The time for rushing and distraction is over. Because we are busy.
Yeah.
But if you have that roadblock, I do a whole thing on roadblocks. But if you have that roadblock, you can maybe even have a calm minute, but you're in a frantic state to figure out what you have to do next,
Hmm.
right? It's a
Yeah.
habit, like you said, it's a habit. So you can say the time for rushing and distraction is over. The time for seeing beautiful moments is now. Okay,
Hmm.
here's another great strategy I don't want to forget. Can I keep going?
Yeah, please.
Now you hear about gratitude and you've read about it in the books and all
Hmm.
that. We all get gratitude, but it's a little overused. But here's one that's based on brain science. So if you have a gratitude practice, keep it going, and I just heard a podcast say if you do three new things in the morning and new things you're grateful for at night, that you actually can change a pessimist even in their 80 years old within 30 days. They can
Oh,
go
wow.
more optimistic just by doing that one thing. Okay.
Hmm.
But that's what I wanted to talk about, beautiful moments. So every day I write down a beautiful moment. Okay. And why I like this so much, it's a tool, but it's also based on your thing. So if you want to think about energy and the reticular activating system in your brain, it's kind of like an antenna. So like if you think about like, oh, I'm going to buy a new car, or I want to get that car, or one item, anything that's kind of top of mind, you're going to start seeing that car everywhere. You're like, oh, that car's making, I just got a Honda. So then I
Yeah.
see Hondas everywhere when
Yes.
I
Yep.
saw Honda because I never even thought about buying a Honda. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then I'm
Yep.
like,
Yep.
really making a comeback? I'm right on it now.
Exactly. I'm a trendsetter.
Yeah, exactly. I got this one before they got too much, right? But really all that is that your antenna's out
Yeah.
because it's top of mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So with beautiful moments, every day I'll write down many times it's way more than one beautiful
Yeah.
moment, but it's not just a gratitude. It's something that I noticed.
Hmm.
Okay. Because I have my antenna out looking for all the beauty. There is so much more good than bad in the world. And we just need to make sure that we're using our brain to see the good.
Hmm.
And I love this story is that I used to have them on a jar. All nine of us moved to a farm and we lived in the same house for 4 years. And I had a jar on my dining room table, and no one did it except for me. But I would like have scrapbook paper and like throw them in the jar. And one night I got home late from a flight and I looked over at the jar and they were all just stacked perfectly, all my beautiful moments in the jar. And I thought, oh, someone in my family sat there and read every beautiful moment. And if that plane would have went down, that's how I want to be remembered.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
Wow.
now I just keep them in my journal. But the other thing is, so you're training your antenna to look for the beauty. Two, if you don't write one down for a day or two, you're off track. So that'll
Hmm.
help you as a tool to get back and start looking for the beauty, because there is
Yeah.
everywhere and we're missing it because we're in this cyclone of burnout and stress and reaction. And then we think everything's terrible in the world, but we just haven't slowed our brain down enough to actually look and train ourselves.
Yeah.
Magic out there, Heather.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there is. I know it's out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, this has been so nice. This is one of those episodes that I do every now and again where I forget I'm recording a podcast and I just get busy listening.
Sorry, I probably just overtalked you.
No, no, no. And then I was like, oh wait, you have host duties. You gotta take
We're
some.
not at the coffee shop. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah. So thank you very much. If you had like one last kind of send off mess quick message, what would it be?
I want to tell every single person that comes across this recording, and I mean it, I know it, and I mean it, is that you are worthy. You're
Hmm.
worthy of joy. You're worthy of abundance. You're worthy to have fun. Um, you're worthy. And our
Yeah,
natural state is that we are intended for that, and we just
yeah,
have to clear the way.
yeah. Thanks. And then lastly, if people want to find more of you.
Well, I'm on Instagram, Erin
Hmm.
Ramsey Way, and then Facebook, Erin Ramsey, and I post every
Hmm.
I have a little posted thing going, mostly to
Yeah,
keep track.
yeah.
TikTok, I'm hit or miss on TikTok, but it's Erin Ramsey underscore. I'm not
Uh-huh.
one of the funny ones on TikTok.
No, me neither.
Be the funny one, but I just
Right.
didn't pull it off yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course, I have my website, which is erinramsey.com.
Okay, great. Thanks. And thanks so much again for
Oh,
being here and
I'm so happy for you.
and sharing all this. Oh, thank you. And thanks everybody for listening to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd.